Hi there, welcome to this build of a 40-inch wingspan Clancy Aviation Speedy Bee. Now I thought, now it's flying and it's still in one piece, I thought it would be a good time to do a build and flight review. I've had quite a few flights in it. So if we talk about the plans first and the actual building of the Speedy Bee, the plans that you can download from the AutoZone website, and there's a link below in the description below this video. The plans you can download are extensive, very detailed, and as far as I found, really accurate. Particularly with the wing ribs, I didn't have any issues with them not fitting, not being the correct size. The same with the fuselage and the formers. I mean, I checked, as I always say, don't trust the plans. And I checked, and everything went together really nicely. And I was really impressed with the plans. So much so that you even get the scallop design of the wings shown and the tail. And I couldn't help but go with that classic Speedy Bee design for the covering, and the covering I've used is Orocover, and it's a beautiful material and went on absolutely lovely. I was really pleased. It's a really interesting build, and I say interesting, I mean, I've built lots of different planes, but I don't think I've ever built anything quite like this. The wing itself, the spars are made up out of several pieces which are overlapped, joined, and it's quite a detailed wing. There's a lot of thinking and balsa that goes into this wing. It's not like your typical design with a single strut that goes all the way through. But you know, it's a really interesting build, and I really actually enjoyed it because it was so different. I mean, the fuselage in many respects is traditional, being sticked up, but then there's things about it that Clancy Aviation have done that just make it quite unique. And I would highly recommend the plans and the actual build. There's nothing about it unpleasant. What I would say, I think, is that I wouldn't rush ahead with the servo placements for perhaps the throttle servo and the ailerons, things like that. I would kind of get it built and think about perhaps the odd modification, adaptation, like I did with this. I think on if you follow the plans, you would see the servo here for the throttle, whereas I've kind of hidden it and made it a little bit more discreet. Now, as far as the power unit for this, this OS fs26 4-stroke is absolutely ideal. It's perfect. I love it. It looks great. It's got that kind of retro feel to it. It sounds great, and power-wise, it's not overpowered, it's not underpowered. It's just what you want. It is a really good power unit for this build. And I suspect if you put the 4-stroke 20 in, it would be a similar, perhaps a little bit less power, but I think it would do equally as well. It's funny, I've posted pictures of this on forums, and I've had the odd person say, oh, it'll be massively overpowered with that 4-stroke. It's not, trust me. It is absolutely perfect for it. It is a slightly heavier engine, so it does add more weight to the build. And talking about adding weight, one of the things I actually adapted when I did this was I did away with the elastic bands and the dowels, and I put a locking mechanism in the front and also in the back here. That has worked absolutely wonderfully. It's great, and you've done away with the kind of, I mean, I'm not a great lover of elastic bands, and I don't mind them on vintage models, but something like this, it's nice just to have the clean lines. And these locking mechanisms have worked really good. They have added a little bit of weight, and the engine as well added a little bit of weight. And I was kind of quite surprised when I came to mock it all or get it all together, and the final weight on this, it was about, I think it was 1400 grams, so 1.4 kilos, which I'll be honest with you, it doesn't feel heavy, but when I weighed it, I was a little bit disappointed with the weight. And I didn't think it would be a problem because you've got a huge wing area, a huge chord, and like I say, for a model of this size, it doesn't feel that heavy. But only time would tell in the flying. But I can highly recommend the plans and the build of this. And the selection, obviously. And of course, I must mention the suspension on the front. Not absolutely necessary, but it really does add to that kind of retro look with this engine, maybe a bit of steampunk or something. I don't know, it just really sets it off for me. But anyway, now let's talk about the flying of this model. I said about the weight being a little bit more than I'd perhaps hoped for, but when I got this into the air, it was as light as a feather. It's funny because there's a real disparity with the bees. On the ground, when you're taxiing this, it looks so cumbersome, it lolls around, and it looks like something from the wacky races. But when you get it in the air, it's elegant, it flies lovely, it's responsive. You know, it really is a lovely flyer. And like I said, particularly with this 4-stroke on the front, giving it just the right amount of power. So the weight, my concerns were just blown away when I started flying this. And you can see on this landing how gently and slowly it just comes in to land. There's no problems there at all. Now, as far as the throws on this, if you look back in the videos when I was setting this up, I wasn't sure what the throw should be, particularly on the ailerons. I had read in some of the Clancy literature that it should be half an inch up and down. I'd also read somewhere about having an inch up and down on the ailerons. And I thought, an inch? These are massive ailerons. I mean, they really are quite big. And I was just concerned if I had it as an inch, it would be really twitchy. Because I've never flown a bee before. And also I had I think I had an inch on the rudder and half an inch on the elevator. Well, it became very, very apparent in the maiden flight that half an inch just wasn't doing it. It was very soft on the turns and I really needed more throws. And the maiden flight was a dead stick. The engine cut out. I had a few issues to start with. And as it comes into land, I ran out of elevators. So the first thing, I mean, I did have dual rates, but they weren't enough either. So now I've got an inch on the ailerons and the elevator, and that is lovely. It's nice and responsive and just what you need. And I think I've left the rudder as an inch as well. So as far as the performance of this, and to be honest, you know, I'm standing here saying what great flyers they are, but if you know anything about the pedigree of the bees, the Lazy Bee and the Speedy Bee, then you would expect nothing less than a really good performing aircraft, which this is. So kind of summing up, I mean, what else is there to say? It's a great set of plans, it's a lovely build process, and what you get out of it in the end is a fantastic looking and flying model, and I can highly recommend it. Actually, the one thing I would say is that the suspension I put on was a little bit soft, and that did need some attention, and you can see it lolls around a little bit. But this is a fantastic model, and it's such a joy to fly. So anyway, get out there and download these plans and build yourself one of these fantastic 40-inch wingspan Clancy Aviation Speedy Bees.